What happened to the women abducted during the Noakhali massacre of 1946? To understand what happened in Noakhali in the latter half of the year 1946, it is important to know what happened in Kolkata a few months before that. In 1946, the Indian independence movement against the British Raj had reached a pivotal stage. British Prime Minister Clement Attlee sent a 3-member cabinet mission to India aimed at discussing and finalizing plans for the transfer of power from the British Raj to the Indian leadership. After holding talks with the representatives of the Indian National Congress and the All India Muslim League, the two largest political parties in the Constituent Assembly of India, on May 16, 1946, the mission proposed a plan of composition of the new Dominion of India and its government. The Cabinet Mission Plan, formulated by the group, proposed a 3-tier administrative structure for British India, with the federal union at the top tier, individual provinces at the bottom tier, and groups of provinces as a middle tier. 3 groups were proposed, called Groups A, B, and C, respectively, for Northwest India, Eastern India, and the remaining central portions of India. The federal union or the center's power was to be confined to foreign affairs, defense, currency, and communications. The provinces would keep all other powers and could establish 3 groups. The plan's main characteristic was the grouping of provinces. 2 groups would be constituted by the mainly Muslim Western and Eastern provinces. The 3rd group would comprise the mostly Hindu areas in the south and the center. Thus, provinces such as United Provinces, Central Provinces, and Berar, Bombay, Bihar, Orissa, and Madras would make Group A. This includes most of modern India without Bengal or Punjab. Group B would comprise Sindh, Punjab, Northwest Frontier, and Baluchistan. Bengal and Assam would make a Group C. Princely states will retain all subjects and powers other than those that ceded to the Union. Both the Congress leadership and former Congressman Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who was currently the leader of the Muslim League, had agreed to the Cabinet Mission Plan of June 16th. But Nehru said in his speech on July 10, 1946, that the Congress was not committed to nor obligated by the plan and rejected the notion that the provinces would be forced to join a group. Jinnah saw the speech as just another example of Congress betrayal. On July 29th, the Muslim League withdrew its earlier endorsement of the Cabinet Mission Plan in response to Nehru's speech on the groupings. In July 1946, Jinnah held a press conference at his home in Bombay. He proclaimed that the Muslim League was preparing to launch a struggle and that they have chalked out a plan. He said that if the Muslims were not granted a separate Pakistan, then they would launch direct action. When asked to be specific, Jinnah retorted, "Go to the Congress and ask them their plans. When they take you into their confidence, I will take you into mine. Why do you expect me alone to sit with folded hands? I also am going to make trouble." The next day, Jinnah announced August 16, 1946 would be Direct Action Day and warned Congress, "We do not want war. If you want war, we accept your offer unhesitatingly. We will either have a divided India or a destroyed India." The Muslim League had thus said goodbye to constitutional methods and was ready to create trouble. Calling for Direct Action Day, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the leader of the All India Muslim League, said that he saw only 2 possibilities, either a divided India or a destroyed India. In July 1946, the Muslim League withdrew its agreement to the plan and announced a general strike or Hartal on August 16th, terming it Direct Action Day, to assert its demand for a separate homeland for Muslims in certain northwestern and eastern provinces in colonial India. The Hartal triggered massive attacks on Hindus in Calcutta, with more than 4,000 people dead and 100,000 residents left homeless within 3 days. The violence triggered a series of massacres in the surrounding area of Noakhali. Noakhali, a small district with an area of 1,658 square miles, was inhabited by both Hindus and Muslims. The call for direct action by Jinnah embraced 6 police stations: Raipur, Lakshmipur, Ramgunj, Begmagunj, Sinbag, and Sandwip, inhabited by 1 million Muslims and 200,000 Hindus. It is clear that this overwhelming numerical superiority of the Muslims placed the Hindus absolutely at their mercy. In all these districts, the Muslim peasants were excited by false propaganda systematically carried on by men representing or speaking in the name of the Muslim League. Ignorant villagers were told that the Hindus had killed almost all the Muslims living in Calcutta, and they were asked to kill their Hindu neighbors in retaliation. In Noakhali, the leader of this crusade was a prominent Muslim leaguer of the district, Pir Ghulam Sarwar, who was a member of the Bengal Legislative Assembly for several years. The League ministry, which were in power during the period, allowed this man complete immunity against all laws, full freedom to preach jihad against the Hindus, and means to organize local hooligans under his leadership. The rioters were well organized, ruthless, and committed their crimes in broad daylight. They used slogans like Allahu Akbar, Pakistan Zindabad, Ludke Lenge Pakistan, Muslim League Zindabad, and Kalakatar Pratishad Chai, Revenge for Calcutta, to gain support. Their actions followed a uniform pattern, including extortion, surrender of arms, arson, looting, and conversion to Islam. The survivors were often required to convert their daughters to Muslims, with village Malvis acting as both hooligans and priests. Guards were placed at victims' residences to prevent their escape and make their conversion permanent. The rioters' systematic attempt to exterminate the intelligentsia and male heirs was a significant part of their actions. The villagers were ready to assist the mob again, acting as both hooligans and priests. When the news of the killings and forced conversions appeared in the news for the first time, Star of India, a newspaper patronized by the Muslim League, denied any incidents of forcible conversion. However, Hussain Shahid Suhrawardi, while answering a question from Dhirendranath Dutta in the assembly, stated that there had been 9,895 cases of forcible conversion in Tipura. The exact figure was not known for Noakhali, but it ran into thousands. Edward Skinner Simpson stated in his report that 22,550 cases of forcible conversion took place in the 3 police station areas of Faridganj, Chandpur, and Hajiganj in the district of Tipura. Dr. Tajul Islam Hashmi concluded that the number of Hindu women raped or converted was probably many times the number of Hindus killed. According to Justice G.D. Khosla, the entire Hindu population of Noakhali were robbed of all they possessed and then forcibly converted to Islam. The attack targeted Hindu property and influential people, with some being brutally murdered. Low-caste Hindus were spared after conversion. Conversion was organized, requiring Hindus to recite the Kalma and eat beef daily. Temples were desecrated, and idols were damaged. Women were assaulted and forcibly married to Muslims. The outside world was unaware of the riots, as rioters cut off Hindus' access to riot-stricken areas through boat or foot traffic, with Muslim boatmen refusing to ferry Hindus. Even after 15 days since the trouble started at Noakhali, press reports showed that offenses against women were committed on a large scale. Yet the Anglo-Indian press of Calcutta was inexplicably silent and did not express even a lukewarm interest in the affair. Beginning on October 26th, groups of volunteers led by Ashoka Gupta made weekly trips to Noakhali, where they assisted in locating abducted women, providing relief to refugees at railway stations, and compiling lists of affected villages based on survivors' testimonies. Ashoka Gupta was among the women who, in the 1940s, managed to move from being a housewife in a middle-class, educated family to a career of helping the outside world. To gain first-hand knowledge of the situation, she toured parts of Tipura and Noakhali districts from October 30th to November 4th, 1946. She and her party went to the relief camp and the Faridganj police station early on November 1st. Between 5,000 and 6,000 immigrants complained to her about receiving subpar rice, which caused them to experience intestinal issues. The women said that the perpetrators had removed their vermilion mark from their forehead and destroyed their conch bangles. She did not, however, receive a definitive solution to the issue of female abduction. Her next stop was Raipura, where the large marketplace was nearly empty as the majority of stores belonged to Hindus. 2 big akras, Vaishnava place of worship, with their deities and belongings were completely dismantled and looted. Humanity, though fragmented, was still alive when she saw that a Hindu family, whose house had been burnt down, was sheltered by a Muslim neighbor for 3 days at the risk of his own safety. Here also she did not get a clue of the abductions that had happened across Noakhali, but there was talk of forcible marriage. Next at Karoa or Karpa village, she saw that the houses were unharmed because of mass conversions. The villagers met them, Women cried before them, and they insisted on military posting or patrolling for their safety. At Chandpur, a Hindu-majority village was completely devastated. Here, for the first time, women told them about the abductions. Ashoka Gupta learnt from reliable sources that 4 women who were more or less distantly related to the Roy family had been taken away. Until that time, they could not be traced. One of the women was 7 months pregnant, and another was a little 8-year-old girl. Another young girl of a neighbor was also missing. After her tour, she suggested that following measures were to be taken urgently. 1. Search parties for abducted women. 2. Forming volunteer corps. Patrol areas with armed guards. 3. Posting of more military. 4. Reassuring people that they were still Hindus. 5. Re-establishing them in their own homesteads by putting up some sort of huts as soon as possible. 6. Making arrangements for reaping the Amun rice crop immediately and giving it to the rightful owners. Ashoka and her colleagues went to roughly 20 communities. The majority of these villages were home to backward Hindu people with Jugi and Namasudra ancestry. Ashoka saw that the attacks followed a similar pattern. Many homes, including handlooms, were reduced to ashes in the majority of villages, and those that survived the fire were looted. A large number of residents had left, and those that remained were compelled to live in makeshift sheds. Hindus were subjected to various forms of terror. In certain instances, Hindus were wrongly accused of setting Muslim homes on fire. Hindus were occasionally coerced into making gifts to the League. They were forced to abandon their settlements due to this hostile climate. Sucheta Kriplani was a social worker who had accompanied Gandhi in Noakhali. During her work in the region, she realized that she herself was a target of the extremists. Ghulam Sarwar Hussaini, who had formed the Mia Fauj to spread terror in the region, had announced that whoever rapes this woman being Sucheta Kriplani, would be awarded the title of Ghazi or hero. Hence, Sucheta always carried a cyanide capsule with her at all times, while she worked tirelessly in Noakhali settlements due to this hostile climate. Ashoka and her teammates observed that conversion under threat of death was universal. But at the same time, they acknowledged that though conversion saved life, it did not protect the house from loot and arson. After conversion, women had to break their conch bangles and rub off the vermilion mark on their parting. The places of worship were defiled, and Hindus were forced to eat beef. Thirdly, the team noted that in most cases, culprits were known persons belonging either to the same village or neighboring villages. Not only were the victims pressurized not to mention any names, but were also threatened not to lodge any statements with the police. After talking to the victims, Ashoka found that copies of written statements submitted in the police stations reached the majority community within 24 hours. So the Hindus did not dare to depose before the police, and Ashoka doubted whether they would ever be able to make any statements if they decided to stay on. So her suggestion was, unless protection is guaranteed, truth cannot be told by those who are staying on. It can only be told by those who have left the villages for good and do not propose to come back. The group observed that government relief had not reached these villages until the 12th of November, and food shortage was acute. The price of rice was at 20 rupees per mond. But the people, having lost everything in the riots, virtually had no buying capacity at all. Their only possessions were a few cattle, betel nuts, and coconuts, but these commodities had no selling price. Moreover, in riot-torn villages, most people were suffering from lack of clothes, possessing not more than a piece of cloth and almost no utensils. Ashoka also noted that a considerable number of people were suffering from diseases like malaria or cholera, and felt that unless a special effort was given, people would die without any medical aid. Hindus, they observed, were too scared to go near their fields, and they also came across cases of forcible stealing of betel nuts and coconuts. Hindus were too scared to protest, and even if they protested, it meant little. Ashoka and her team also started collecting statistics of crimes against women. They came across cases of physical assault on women when the rioters attempted to forcibly take away money and jewelry. They also came across cases of forcible marriage, molestation, and even rape. Even young girls who had not yet reached their marriageable age were not spared. But it was not easy to extract information from them. Sometimes we had to talk to them alone for a long time before they dared to come forward with their pitiful story. She noted that luckily many parents of the forcibly married girls did not consider such marriages valid and brought back their girls after the disturbance was over. In some cases, however, forcible marriages were averted after persuasion by the girl's family or by the timely intervention of the neighboring family. In some cases, refusal to forcible marriage resulted in the house being put on fire. She also noted that a section of the Muslim women too did not prevent their men from committing atrocities on women. A victim confided in Ashoka that when she was hiding to escape from the perpetrators, one Muslim woman told her, "Why do you flee? Be of our religion. Eat beef and get your daughters married to our family." Ashoka's experience also pointed out that even a section of educated Muslims were not against such forcible marriages. She noted that in Charuhita Sashi Majumdar's daughter Sudebi Sundari, age 10, was married to Syed Ahmed, who belonged to a doctor's family in Tumshur. For 3 months, Ashoka was fully immersed in relief work, which included organizing medical teams, rebuilding houses, undertaking repairing of roads, sinking tube wells, talking to the local people, and visiting villages and camps. They were running 3 camps in Majapur, Parbatinagar, and Tumshur. 1,055 persons were taken care of at Camp Number 1, 1,105 persons in Camp Number 2, and 800 persons at Camp Number 3. Her co-worker, Leela Roy, led a significant rescue mission, walking 90 miles from Chowmohani to Ramgunj in a week in December. She and her team successfully rescued 1,307 girls who had been abducted during the riots. An important part of their rehabilitation program was to make arrangements for children and women who were guardianless. Ashoka at first used to make a temporary arrangement either in Lakshmipur camp or in some family. Later, they were transferred to Kasturba Trust in Kumala or the Prabartak Sangha in Chittagong. She also completed the task of inoculation in her area. She did not forget to make financial arrangements for the children she had rescued and sent them to Prabartak Sangha, so that they would not have to face any financial problems after her departure. Ashoka considered her days in Noakhali as the most rewarding and memorable period in her working life. When the news of the events in Noakhali reached the outside world, Indian social, religious, and political institutions came forward for relief and rescue operations. Notable among them were the Bharat Savashram Sangha, Hindu Mahasabha, the Indian National Congress, the Communist Party of India, the Indian National Army, Prabartak Sangha, Abhay Ashram, Arya Samaj, and Gita Press. 30 relief organizations and 6 medical missions participated in the relief work in Noakhali. Additionally, there were 20 camps under Gandhi's One Village, One Worker plan. On receiving the news of Noakhali, Ashutosh Lahiri, the General Secretary of the Hindu Mahasabha, immediately left for Chandpur. Syama Prasad Mukherjee, Nirmal Chandra Chatterjee, and Pandit Narendranath Das, along with other workers, flew to Kumala and entered the affected area with military escorts. A plane was requisitioned and dispatched to the area with supplies such as rice, kaira, bread, milk, biscuits, barley, and medicines. Other consignments of relief supplies were dispatched by train. The affected people who took refuge in Kolkata were given protection in about 60 centers in the city and suburbs. Syama Prasad Mukherjee appointed the company P.K. Mitter & Co., a Kolkata-based accountancy firm, to control the collection, disbursement, and audit of funds contributed by the public. Although the massacres and mass conversions had stopped in October, persecution of the Hindu population continued in Noakhali, even during Gandhi's stay there.